When most women think about what men want after sex, they often imagine the stereotypical scenes portrayed in movies and television. Maybe it is the image of a man rolling over and instantly falling asleep, or perhaps the idea that he just wants to reach for his phone, grab a snack, or retreat into his own world. Those images have been reinforced by culture for decades, but when you peel back the layers and look at the research, the truth is far more surprising, far more human, and far more emotionally significant. Science suggests that what men desire most in those quiet, vulnerable moments after sex is not food, not sleep, and not solitude. Instead, what men truly crave is emotional connection, reassurance, and intimacy that extends beyond the physical act itself. And this is not just a romantic notion. It is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and studies that have looked at human bonding behaviors. To understand why, you need to look at the way human beings are wired. Sex is not only a physical release, but also a biological bonding mechanism. During sex, and particularly after orgasm, the human brain releases powerful neurochemicals such as oxytocin, dopamine, and prolactin. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone. It creates feelings of trust, closeness, and safety. Dopamine reinforces the pleasure of the experience, linking it to reward pathways. Prolactin induces a sense of relaxation and satisfaction. Together, these hormones create the perfect storm for emotional bonding. While women are often more associated with oxytocin, studies show that men also experience a surge of it after sex. That hormonal cocktail means that biologically, men are primed not just for sleep, but for closeness, tenderness, and connection. The image of a man who simply rolls away is often more cultural than biological. This raises the question, if men are wired to seek closeness, why do so many women believe otherwise? One reason is that men and women are socialized differently. From a young age, boys are taught that vulnerability is a weakness, that expressing the need for comfort or reassurance makes them less masculine. Over time, those cultural messages condition men to mask their true desires. So even if his body and brain are telling him to cuddle, to talk, to connect, he might suppress those urges. He might act aloof, distant, or distracted, not because he does not want closeness, but because he has been taught that asking for it is not masculine. Science reveals that beneath that conditioning, men's primary post-sex desire aligns very closely with what many women crave too: intimacy, safety, and emotional affirmation. One of the most fascinating studies conducted on this subject was published in the Journal of Sex Research. Researchers surveyed men about their post-coital preferences and found that the majority expressed a strong desire for cuddling, affectionate touch, and verbal affirmations. They wanted to feel valued, accepted, and emotionally safe with their partner. Interestingly, men who reported higher levels of emotional closeness after sex also reported greater relationship satisfaction overall. In other words, it is not just about the sex itself, but about what happens after. The afterglow, that lingering sense of closeness, predicts the strength of the relationship in the long run. Another key piece of evidence comes from neuroscience. Functional MRI studies have shown that during orgasm, brain regions associated with fear and anxiety deactivate, while regions associated with bonding light up. That means men are neurologically placed in a moment of maximum vulnerability after sex. At that point, harsh words, rejection, or emotional coldness can cut especially deep. Conversely, tender words, gentle touch, and emotional affirmations sink in more powerfully than almost any other time. That is why what you do and say after sex matters so much. Men may not verbalize it, but they feel it profoundly. Their sense of emotional connection can either be strengthened or weakened in those delicate minutes. So what exactly do men want after sex? The science points to a few specific things. First, they want affirmation. It could be as simple as hearing that you enjoyed the moment too, that you feel close to him, or that you appreciate him. These affirmations reassure him that he is desired, and that the bond between you is strong. Second, they want physical closeness. A man may not always initiate cuddling, but that does not mean he does not want it. In fact, many men secretly long for the warmth of their partner's body against theirs, the reassurance that they are not alone, and the comfort of touch. Third, they want emotional presence. This does not mean having a deep conversation about the meaning of life right after sex. It means being there, engaged, and receptive. Whether it is a laugh, a kiss, or a quiet moment of eye contact, emotional presence tells him that the experience was shared, not solitary. What is striking is how misunderstood this often is. Many women think that men are primarily driven by physical release, and that once that need is met, they lose interest. But science shows the opposite. For many men, sex is the gateway to emotional intimacy, not the other way around. While women are often encouraged to see emotional intimacy as the precondition for sex, men often experience sex as the path to intimacy. That difference in perspective can cause misunderstandings. A woman might interpret his silence or his physical stillness as disinterest, when in fact he is simply overwhelmed by the flood of bonding chemicals, unsure of how to express his vulnerability. Understanding this difference can transform relationships. Instead of feeling hurt or rejected, a woman can lean into that moment with warmth, touch, and presence, creating a deeper bond. There is also a fascinating evolutionary angle. From a survival perspective, emotional bonding after sex strengthens pair bonds. Human infants are among the most vulnerable in the animal kingdom, requiring years of care. Strong pair bonds between partners ensured survival. The after-sex bonding ritual was nature's way of gluing couples together, increasing the chances that they would stay connected long enough to raise offspring. That evolutionary wiring still exists today, even if we do not always recognize it. Men are built to seek and value post-sex connection, even if modern stereotypes obscure that reality. So what can you do with this knowledge? If you are a woman, you can begin by reframing what you think men want. Instead of assuming that he just wants space or sleep, experiment with offering closeness, touch, and affirmation. Whisper something tender. Rest your head on his chest. Hold his hand. Notice how he responds, not in words but in body language. Often, you will see his body relax, his breathing deepen, his arms pull you closer. Those are the signs that you have given him exactly what he wanted, but could not ask for. If you are in a long-term relationship, making post-sex bonding a ritual can dramatically increase satisfaction for both partners. Research shows that couples who engage in affectionate behaviors after sex report greater relationship happiness and are more resilient to conflicts. On the flip side, if you ignore this need, the consequences can quietly erode a relationship. When men feel emotionally disconnected after sex, they may interpret it as rejection, even if that was not the intention. Over time, those repeated experiences can build distance, resentment, or insecurity. He might begin to associate sex not with intimacy, but with emptiness. That is why recognizing and responding to this need is not trivial. It is foundational to building trust, closeness, and passion that lasts. Of course, not all men are the same. Some genuinely do need physical space after sex, perhaps to process their emotions or simply because of biological fatigue. But even in those cases, what they ultimately want is not isolation, but reassurance. They want to know that their partner is emotionally present, even if they are not physically entwined at that moment. A quick kiss, a gentle word, or even the promise of closeness later can satisfy that need. The key is not to assume disinterest, but to understand that vulnerability looks different in every man. The irony is that when women embrace this truth, they often discover that men are far softer, more emotionally complex, and more in need of love than they realized. Beneath the armor of masculinity lies a deep longing for acceptance, reassurance, and tenderness. Sex strips away that armor, if only for a brief time. That is when a man's truest self is revealed. And that is when your love has the greatest power to reach him. Science has confirmed what poets, lovers, and philosophers have intuited for centuries. After sex, men do not primarily want escape. They want connection. They want to know that the intimacy they just shared was meaningful, that they are safe in your arms, and that the bond between you is real. So the next time you are with your partner and the moment of afterglow arrives, remember what science tells us. Instead of turning away, lean in. Instead of assuming he does not care, realize that he may be aching for closeness but unable to voice it. Wrap him in your arms, whisper something soft, and let the silence be filled with presence. In those moments, you are not just giving him comfort. You are building the foundation of a stronger relationship, one rooted in both physical and emotional intimacy. And that is the number one thing men truly want after sex, even if they never say it out loud.